We now welcome on a very special guest to the Barstool Bench Mob. He's one of the greatest to ever do it when it comes to college basketball, the NCAA scoring leader in 2006, and also a two-time NBA champion from the Gonzaga Bulldogs. It is Adam Morrison. Adam, first off, welcome to New York. You can listen to Adam on the Perimeter podcast, Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcasts. Also, Nothing But Net on Dash Radio. Currently, most recent guest, Mark Few, your former head coach, right? So welcome. Tell us a little bit about that.
I just started. I did Corey Kispert, who just declared, or obviously senior year, but declared for the NBA draft. DJ Ski, founder of Dash Radio, is my guy. And then Joel Ayayi, who just declared from Gonzaga. And then obviously Coach Few, like you said. So we're in the infancy of the podcast, but we've got some good stuff so far. And, if you're a college basketball fan, it's not going to be all college basketball, but it's my experiences in the pros with people I've met, and kind of how my life has gone from there. So it's a good listen, I think.
For sure. You mentioned Coach Few, and I know it was a tough loss for Gonzaga. We caught a little bit of crap before the game. Mm-hmm. I went on record saying it was one of the most anticipated championship games that I thought in the last 20 years, right? So so where do you stand on that? Because a lot of people were giving a shit because it wasn't two big names, but it was, when you look at it, it's 1-2 the whole year.
Yeah.
We didn't have a championship game for 2 years.
Yeah.
Few and
Scott Drew
are going to be the guys to break through. Yeah. They're going to be the next ones with the title. I thought there was a lot of – the game that they originally had was canceled.
Yeah.
I thought there was a lot around that.
Yeah, I think it was two programs that are not blue bloods in this sense. Obviously, Gonzaga has been around for 20 years, but they went to the national championship game in 2017. Baylor, Scott Drew's done a fantastic job with taking that program to where it was. We all know that backstory on that. I think it was a situation where it was two teams that, from a Gonzaga standpoint, because I cover the games, I do the color for them. It would have been better for us down the road if we played them in December. We didn't get that, obviously. And then you talk about the season before, the COVID stuff, so no tournament. So I think it was the perfect matchup for the NCAA to have 1 versus 2, and kind of contrasting styles. Both teams were fantastic offensively. Obviously, Baylor, I think, was a little bit more physical defensively overall. I thought it was a good matchup for the NCAA. The game didn't go our way, and it's something that we could like to have back. But Baylor was playing fantastic that whole tournament, and they kind of just took us out of our deal. But I don't think the take before the game is controversial, right? I mean, it's 1 versus 2, like probably both undefeated if there's not a COVID pause.
Absolutely.
So that's where I came in, was like, if there wasn't a COVID pause for Baylor, there'd probably been both undefeated.
Dave Portnoy's a tough guy to sway his opinion, so I could have used you around here.
Who else would he wanted in that game?
He didn't really have an answer.
That's
that was kind of the thing. Exactly, yeah. Well, he's also a Michigan guy, so you got to remember that.
Well, yeah, that game was, the UCLA-Michigan game was wild before that, and then everybody knows the Gonzaga-UCLA game was fantastic with Jalen Suggs shot. But I think it was the perfect matchup for a pause year before, hopefully we can climb the hill once and get a national championship.
Yeah, I gave a lot of shit to Gonzaga, and I knew that what I was doing is that, like, obviously everyone's thing is like, oh, they play nobody, even though they played everybody early this year.
Yeah.
Do you think, though, that really does affect them a little bit, that they're not playing those teams in, February?
You can so it's a twofold answer. Like, there's value in going 30-2 every year, 30-3 or whatever. Okay, there's a lot of value because the year before we were floating the idea, or 2 years before, to go to the Mountain West. Okay, but then you got to ask yourself, do you want to go play a game in Laramie in December, right? What value do you get out of that? Does it hurt having a great non-conference schedule before, and then you kind of have that break with the West Coast Conference? I must add, and this is not a homer take, but St. Mary's is a good college basketball program. BYU is a good basketball program. So it's not like we're playing the Sisters of the Poor, but I get everybody's, haste when you're like, well, they're not in the ACC or the Big East or whatever. So me as a former player, and then obviously somebody calls the games, I think it's tough to get yourself at the same level during February, March when you're playing the West Coast Conference games. That's no question. But also, if you're looking from a program standpoint, it helps when you're 30-2 for seeding. And what's the value of going 8-8 sometimes in a good year, or you have injuries or something happens? Do those teams ever win the national championship? Most likely not. Maybe when's the last one to do that? Like UConn with Kemba Walter. You know what I'm saying?
Final Four runs,
Perfect
like Syracuse,
storm,
a 7 or 10 seed.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So I think it's not a terrible question to ask, and it's not illogical, but also it gets kind of ridiculous because it's like, we play the best non-conference schedule that we can. Yes, you could add some few more, but it's hard for us to get people to come to our place. That's first and foremost. And it's like we can't tell when we schedule Kansas or whomever, I'm just throwing out a team, how they're going to do the rest of the year. So if we come out and blow them out in the start of the year, it's a good win for us. But if, let's say they go 10-6 or whatever in the Big 12, and then everybody's like, well, that wasn't a quality win. Well, we have to schedule at the start of the year. So I don't know. I look at it at both aspects, but to me, the value program-wise, seeding-wise, brand-wise, there's nothing wrong with the West Coast Conference.
Right, because you look at the non-conference schedule, first 3 games, Kansas, Auburn, West Virginia, none of them make the Sweet 16, but how are you going to know that? Because on paper, it looks like a great schedule, and it still was.
Yeah, absolutely. So we always schedule tough because we understand that on the backside. And then you can argue, okay, if you're playing a tough conference tournament, is that, that turns like into the playoffs, right, for you, where you got to win. But again, like, we always get a high seed because we earn it, and we try to counteract the West Coast Conference. But again, St. Mary's has been in the tournament almost probably 8 or 9 times out of the last 10. Now, don't quote me on that, but it's going off the top of the head. And BYU is a good program. Now, they're usually a 6 seed and above, or maybe they sneak into the 5 line. So it's not terrible, but I get where the average fan, I'm not calling you average, but you get what I'm saying, has that. It's a quick take, and I understand it. So, there's value on the backside for us to still be, ripping 29 wins, 30 wins a year.
So you mentioned – go ahead.
Well, off of that, we've brought that up to a couple different people, and you see it last year with BYU and Coastal Carolina in football, right? And we've seen this moving schedule. Do you think college basketball scheduling is flawed, that they should have a showcase? My idea is Martin Luther King Day weekend and President's Day weekend, and maybe West Virginia, instead of playing them in December or Auburn when they hit the shitter, you have a big game in February that's good for everybody.
I mean, let's say you're a coach on the bubble, though, and you take that game and you lose, then you're definitely out. So, like, there's so many moving parts when it comes to scheduling in college basketball that I don't think, some people understand. Like I said, there's value in being successful in your conference. As college basketball fans, would we want to see more high-level competition games? Absolutely. I mean, I call 35 games a year, and I probably call 28 blowouts because we're so good. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? So I'm trying not to fall asleep. I'm telling fucking stories through half of the second half. I really am. I got a great partner who calls the games on the radio, but we're just filling time. So I understand where, the fans, because my era, college basketball was covered differently. It was bigger, because there wasn't as much one-and-dones, and guys stayed around, so you knew the starting 5, and you kind of fell in love with recruiting classes. Now it's like, you better fall in love with this team, and then 2 of the guys are gone, or 3 of the guys are gone the next year. So I understand what you're saying. I want to see more high-level games, but it's a sport that's controlled by the coaches. You know what I'm saying? So they're going to protect their brand as well. There's value in stacking 3, 4, 5 wins going to your conference tournaments, things like that. So you're not wrong, but it's not as simple as like, let's just go play, because a lot of coaches don't. A lot of coaches have deals in on their contracts that say, if I get 25 wins, I get a $200,000 bump. So who are you going to schedule, right?
Yeah, you're right.
You know what I'm saying? On the backside, so that part comes into it too as well.
So you mentioned calling games for Gonzaga.
Mm-hmm.
I know some broadcast crews were limited with their travel.
Yeah.
Were you at the tournament? And give us your perspective, if so, of the Jalen Suggs buzzer.
Yeah, so this year, normally I call every game home and away. This year I didn't do any of the away games. I did all the home games, which is what it was, and there's like 50 people in the arena. It was kind of depressing, to be honest. But I showed up to the Sweet 16 and on, so I called the Creighton game and then the USC game, and then that UCLA game was unbelievable. Everybody knows the backstory with Gonzaga and UCLA in my year. Jalen's shot was obviously something that you don't see very often, especially in that type of moment. Everybody's seen some half-court buzzer beaters, but for him to do that with our fan base and to give them a Gonzaga over UCLA moment, I think that was the biggest thing. And then to give Jalen a signature moment as a one-and-done guy, and kind of made it the case study of why one-and-done is better than going the G League route. I think both routes are fair. I'm a 0 or 2 guy, if that makes sense. I think you should have the option to not go to college, but if you go, I think you should have to stay for 2. That's just my opinion. You can argue about it all day long. There's counter arguments to everything. But also, it gave him notoriety. It put a moment for him on his short career in Gonzaga. It gave our fan base something that they'll always remember, but it gave him instant recognizability with his name. So like when you go with who's the kid that played for Ignite? Jalen Green? Is that his name?
I believe so.
Right? God bless him. Like, that's not a terrible route as well, but do you think people know about Jalen Suggs more than Jalen Green right now? So that maybe that shortly down the road that affects his not draft stock, but money you can make off the court. But yeah, it was wild. I mean, our call, mine and Tom Hudson's, I work for Learfield IMG.
Right.
And I think we got like 3.5 million hits on the call because I was just screaming like a baby. It was fun.
That's awesome.
It was great. It was cool. It was a cool moment.
What do you see with him at the next level of the NBA, being so close?
His comps are so difficult, and I've had this discussion. Plug my podcast again. Me and Coach Few talk about it for about 10 minutes. Coach Few liked Jason Kidd with a better jump shot. He said the North and South was fantastic. He liked them to a little bit of Russell Westbrook, not as explosive, but the relentless attacking the rim. Now, what is he going to pan out to be? I think he's a fantastic, willing passer. That's his best strength. And I think at the next level with the floor spaced, he's going to have an opportunity to showcase that more. He needs to improve his jump shot game. Every kid at 19 years old is going to get that. Needs to be more consistent with that. His finishing around the rim is above average. That's something that you get a layup package you work on. So his comps are really tough because, like I said, he's a willing passer, but he can also score in streaks and bunches. But he wasn't a guy where, he had 30 a couple times this year, but like his jumper would be wet for 2, and then he might airball the next one. You get what I'm saying? So I don't know. His comps are really interesting to me, but athletically, no question. Basketball IQ, no question. All those other things he'll get better at. I think he's a solidified top 5 pick. Great kid. Family was fantastic. The IQ stuff is there, so somebody's going to get a great pick, in my opinion.
Awesome.
You go from Jalen Suggs, and then now you're going with Chet, who's obviously a completely different player. What have you seen from him? Because obviously, for me, it's like we know how good he is. We know how he has all those tools, but he's just a 7-foot guy running that court like he's a point guard almost. Have you seen anything from him?
Yeah, I've watched a little bit of tape on him. I've seen the highlight stuff build up. I think he's like Kevin Durant. I mean, that's the best comp I can give. Everybody at first always goes, he needs to gain weight. Like, the kid's 18 years old, okay? Who cares? If you
He'll
go look
there.
Yeah, and if you look at Kevin Durant in a Texas uniform, looks the same way. So that stuff doesn't bother me. I think he's got a fantastic handle. It looks like he plays with a little bit of edge on his shoulder, just like Kevin Durant. So we're excited to have him. It's going to be interesting to see how he fits into that system. We play perimeter, space of the floor, 4 out, 5 in, reads. He's obviously can do that. I'm looking forward to watching him, calling him. But we already know he's going to be there for 6 months. That's about it.
What do you make of the tandem with Timmy down low?
It's going to be good. See, that's the thing, though. Like, I think Chet would be more of a situational back-to-the-basket player. Now, will we do that against matchups and he has that ability? Absolutely, but he's a perimeter player. So I think Fewy will use that to his advantage. This is what I'm looking forward to is, like, they do it a lot in the NBA, but I think the Heat started doing it where they run like a 4 or 5 ball screen at the elbow or something, like with a big, like LeBron being the other big. So like, how do you defend that if a big is guarding Timmy, or vice versa, and Chet's coming off this ball screen on a short ball screen? How do you defend that? So that to me is the most compelling factor with his game, is how some of these people are going to match up. But Timmy was fantastic this year as well, and hopefully he puts his name in the draft and gets the proper advice and proves himself and can leave the next year.
Right. So earlier we talked about the positive memories with UCLA. Of course, your career, it's notable how it ended. Mm-hmm. At one point, that happened in 2006. Obviously, you have the bad memory of it forever, but does it start not to hurt as much, or is it still there?
It's always going to be there. That's part of my story as a player and my story as a Gonzaga player, right? But have I put the stuff to bed? Yeah, I probably put it to bed like 8, 9, 10 years ago, to be honest. Mm-hmm. Did it feel good when Gonzaga beat them? Yeah, you know what I mean? But was it like a solidifying moment in my life? No, because that's always going to be there. It's part of college basketball culture, I guess. I still get people coming up, either mostly positive, sometimes it's negative, a little needle to the side there. But like, when I went on with Dan earlier, he was like, "Hey man, like you were part of my life and during that time point."
Gus Johnson, the call.
Yeah, and I've actually known Gus for a while after, like in my pro career, and we've always talked about that call. And I think I'm going to be able to get him on my podcast, so it'll be cool because he has fantastic calls. But yeah, the funny thing is, I played with Ryan Hollins. Right, he got drafted with me in Charlotte, and he like lived in my attic. Not attic, but like an area upstairs until he found a house for like a month. I was teammates with Jordan Farmar. So like when people think, like casual fans think it's like some, crazy embarrassing moment, like not to other players, like everybody shows emotion, right? You know what I'm saying? So yeah, like, am I over it? Yeah, I think I portray that enough. But like I said, it did feel good a little bit. Gonzaga now has that moment over UCLA, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was always the thing that stood out to me, and I know you've caught some shit for it, but recently, and I'm not really a fan of him, but Allen Iverson, that whole practice thing came out.
Yeah.
Have you seen that clip that his best friend died, and he was going through, like, not that you were going through anything, but it's just like players can show emotion, you know what I mean? You never know what's going through, and, you did it hit you like it was your last game? Like, so it just all that emotion.
Well, so here's the story. Like, I was a ball boy for Gonzaga when I first moved there. I was from Spokane, still am. And that was the only university that offered me. Okay, so I was type 1 diabetic, under-recruited. So I was a hometown kid, came out of nowhere. Obviously had a good freshman year, sophomore year, and then have this great junior year. So I knew that tournament was my last, deal. And we haven't made the Elite Eight before that until 1999 was the team before. So I was trying to, as our group was trying to make history. And then we had a 15-point lead with like 6 minutes left, and 10 things had to go wrong, and all 10 of them did. And so the thing is like it all hits you, but like you don't try to do it during a game to look ahead. But we had Memphis earlier that year. I think I had 34 or something like that, and we lost at home as the Calipari Memphis years with Kyle Lowry was good on that team, Sean Williams was good on that team. And we thought we should have won that game. So, like, during the game, you're like, oh, man, we're going to get Memphis again. And they beat us, so that's going to be more pressure on us. And we're playing for a Final Four, and then all hell breaks loose. So I think part of that was why the emotion came out. But if you watch any NCAA tournament game, there's guys crying on the sideline all the time. And if you go to any locker room, which they don't allow access, if you're a team that's bonded and believes in the same goals system that you have, and you really love each other as young athletes, there's emotion.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I always thought you got a raw deal with that.
Yeah, no, I did. At times it felt like it was a little bit, over the top. I'm just lucky that it was 2006 and it wasn't now.
No Twitter, no Instagram.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I get that aspect of it. But yeah, there was at times it was like, hey man, like, with certain media, like if you look back, like, hey, I was still an amateur, man. And media, the way I look at it is when I call games, if a guy makes a shitty play or has a shitty week or a shitty game, they're still amateur kids, so you kind of have to gloss over it a little bit. Now you get to the pros, you can fucking say whatever you want, right?
Yeah,
that's how it's supposed to be. So that part of it was a little bit disheartening and whatnot, but also, it was part of basketball culture, or a moment in basketball culture at the time. College basketball is viewed way different in my era than it is now. So I understand the hype around the situation.
But I did see that you were in high school. You weren't like heavily recruited, right? Like,
yeah.
I also saw that you almost had like a seizure one game and scored like 37 points.
Yeah.
So is that true?
Yeah. So I was diagnosed type 1 when I was 14. So I had a strict routine as far as playing in games, and so we go to the state tournaments. My senior year, we're undefeated. And we end up playing Aaron Brooks' team. We played at Oregon, played in the NBA for 10 plus years, I imagine. And I was sick, I think the night before, the 2 nights before, so I had a really low blood sugar reaction. My blood sugar was at the 50s range for most of that game, and I just couldn't get anything to rise, but obviously had a good game. And so, yeah, like I wouldn't call it a seizure, but it was low blood sugar the whole game, and I just couldn't get it to counterbalance. But we lost that game. That was another tough loss. You guys just come in and just beat the shit out of me with all these tough losses, man. Like, fuck.
We were over that. Marty came
over
the top.
like, holy
That's
shit.
Marty. He's a dick.
Just brought down the whole energy.
Yeah, no, he's a dick.
Yeah, I mean, we wouldn't be doing our job if we didn't bring up the UCLA.
Oh no, it's par for the course for me now. Like, you could tell my answer. I probably already said that answer a million other times. So like, but yeah, like it was. That was a fun year of my basketball career. Obviously, nobody gives a shit about Washington State high school basketball, but I made a lot of friends during that time. We go undefeated, losing the championship game to another undefeated team. It was East versus West, Seattle versus Spokane, black versus white, kind of what it was. And I still see Aaron Brooks. I saw him like a couple of years ago, and just getting off an elevator in Portland, and we sat there and talked for like 5 minutes. It was pretty cool to kind of chop it up again. So.
That's fun.
Good times for the most part.
Yes. So there's a lot of well-documented memories and moments for you. What's one college basketball moment that we don't know about that you enjoyed?
Ooh, that's a good one. That you guys don't know about. Well, I mean, I was lucky enough last year to get my jersey thing done with Gonzaga. That was a really special moment for me. I was the only third player to do it. It was Frank Burgess, John Stockton, obviously, before that. So I was the first guy with the new era. That means a lot to me. It was good for my family. I have 3 kids, and then my sisters and brothers, or my sisters, excuse me, and then my parents. Be able to get, have them witness that. But man, it's been well documented. That's a good question. I mean, we've done all this stuff is like, my kids will listen to it. My 2 oldest daughters will listen to this for sure. My son's only 4, so he won't get it. But if I include some of this stuff, I want to make sure they still think I was, just a good, I went to school every day and didn't have a drink or anything like that. That's what I'm saying.
The big offseason story was Tommy Lloyd going to Arizona,
yeah.
right? And Arizona's still a power program.
It is.
You start to dive in a little bit. Haven't been to a Final Four in 20 years, a couple of Elite Eights. Is this, a change? What do we expect? What do we expect for Arizona with Tommy Lloyd? Can he put him back over the edge to, a Final Four national championship?
So Tommy Lloyd has been there for 20 years. He was there when I was playing. He recruited me, so just the backstory. And then he's an apex European recruiter. He is an elite X's and O guy. He's the reason Gonzaga. Obviously, Coach Few's had an aspect as well in the philosophy changes. Again, you can listen to it on my podcast. And he changed the philosophy as like the kind of the 4 out, 5 in, or 4 out, 5 out situation, ball screen read, cutters, kind of like the NBA does. So I think Arizona's going to get that style. Like I said, he has connections in overseas where he finds diamond in the rough European players that a lot of people don't understand. Filip Petrusev was fantastic big. Domas Sabonis, Killian Tilly, Joel Ayayi this last year, like all-American type players, okay? Roni Turioff, the first one. He played in the NBA for 10 years, but played with me, right? So we're talking like really high-level European players that can change your program. He's going to bring a culture that I think – I can't speak for Arizona, but if you're not winning, the culture is usually not there. Okay, so he was part of the culture change or the culture continuing to grow at Gonzaga. So I think it's a fantastic opportunity for him. I think Arizona did the right thing on thinking outside the box. Not saying they didn't have appropriate candidates, but sometimes you can't just go in the family all the time. You got to change things up. I hope he gets a fair shake as far as, because we don't know if there's going to be, sanctions or whatever come down the road. So I hope he gets a fair shake in that regard. Tommy's a personal friend of mine. I think it's overdue that he gets this opportunity. He's still young too. He's only 46 in coaching standpoint. And like I said, he is an apex recruiter and X and O guy. And he's all about culture. And I think in college basketball, it gets overlooked a lot. You have to have a culture to be successful. If you don't, to me, it's hard to stack winning seasons on top of each other.
I had to bring up that because you shared, was it Player of the Year with J.J. Redick when you were playing?
So he won the Naismith, which is the big one. I won the Oscar Robinson one. I think I won the Chevrolet one. And I think we might have shared the AP one, but there's multiple different ones. But yeah, he won the main one. Yeah.
But then now this year, Gonzaga is actually playing Duke in Vegas, right? So what are we thinking about that? Because I'm a Duke guy, and I have to bring up Duke all the time when I talk to anybody.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're playing in Vegas. I think that's a huge off-season game for them.
Yeah.
Non-conference game for them this year.
I think it's wise. Those two programs are similar in the sense of obviously Duke's had the national championships in the blue blood, but they play similar style. They have a mix of the one and dones, and then try to mix in the culture stuff and elite coaches. Obviously, Krzyzewski is the Mount Rushmore. Coach Few is going to be a future Hall of Famer as well. Yep. So I think it's wise for both those programs to play. I wish it would be home and home. To be honest, I think it'd be cool to go with Cameron, and it'd be cool to come in the kennel at Gonzaga. But just the fact that both those programs kind of figured it out, because that game has been whispered about for about 4 or 5 years, or trying to get that series going, and I think it's cool that they finally did it. But to your point earlier, that college basketball needs more games like that. They just do, and especially early in the season, even mid-season. I used to like when we played that Memphis I mentioned earlier. We played that in the middle of our West Coast Conference season. We did that add-on game. So I like your idea of, hey, do a conference tournament, but again, the coaches understand that might not be good for your brand.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But I think a Duke-Gonzaga matchup's really cool.
Yeah, I've always thought Gonzaga schedule. I'm pretty positive. Correct me if I'm wrong. I watched you play St. Joe's in 2004 at the Garden.
Yeah, we played.
Yeah, you guys have always made a point to have a big.
We have to.
Yes.
Because our RPI and things like that always dip when it gets the West Coast Conference, and that's not a knock on the conference, but it's just the reality. So we have to shoot that thing to the moon as high as we can, and then watch it dip down when we get in the conference.
So pivoting over to your NBA career, a couple of rings with the Lakers, 09, 2010. I read this story online, and I guess you'll back up if it's valid or not. The Kobe broken finger story.
Yeah.
About the left-handed shot. Can you describe that?
Yeah, so we used to have debates, friendly debates on the bus and stuff like that, and Kobe was a guy that needed to be motivated on different things because he was so successful. So he was a guy that made shit up in his own head, So we had a debate one time talking about who has the best left hand in the league, and he would never be in the debates, but he'd be sitting right there, so you could hear him. So if you really wanted to kind of motivate him, you'd be like, yeah, LeBron's playing really good this year, and he would kind of get pissed off. I wouldn't say anything, but you knew he heard it. Yeah. So we had a debate of who's got the best left hand, and we were all like, pow, it's not even close. And Kobe was like, bullshit, I got the best left hand. And everybody's like, dude, you don't shoot left-handed, so everybody can dribble left-handed. Where's this coming from? Okay. And so I think about a month goes by, That's the year he broke the top of his finger, right here, this knuckle or whatever. And he plays the rest of the game. He does it like in the first or second quarter, first half for sure. Plays the rest of the game left-handed with a broken hand, and he's like shooting left-handed. He has like 18, 19 or something like that. And he checks out, and he gets his water and his towel and sits right next to me, and he goes, "Hey, Amo, you still think I got the best left hand in the fucking league?" And took his drink of his water, and that was it. You know what I mean? Like, he thought about that for like a month. And it was like, okay, fucking asshole. But yeah, man.
See him on the back of the bus, just being like fuming at like hearing you talk about that.
Yeah, no, well, he was a competitive guy, and yeah, so he's greatly missed, and that's the only Kobe story you're gonna get out of me. So just letting you know, okay? So that's all I'll share. But yeah, he was ultra competitive. Everybody knew that, but he was a guy that needed to be motivated in different ways. Not that we had anything to do with it, but you could he was a guy that was like, "Hey, what's the scoring record in this building?" He was one of those guys. Like, you used to hear stories Larry Bird would ask that just to fuck around, but like they needed to get up for something, and saying he didn't have the best left hand like bothered him. Right? That makes sense.
Yeah, I guess that's a perfect transition. You saw that a lot with Jordan in The Last Dance. He was making shit up in his head that he hated. Yeah. You're one of the guys who happen to have first person interactions with both those guys who were close to him.
Yeah.
Is it true you had to go ask Jordan for the $100 you beat him in a bet one time? And he whipped out $10,000.
Yeah. So we it's most NBA locker rooms do it. If your team's playing basketball or football, it's an automatic $100 bet. You can bet up more, but it's just an unspoken bet. And Carolina played Gonzaga that first year in the Garden. It was like 2007 after I left, and Gonzaga won that game. And so at the Christmas party, I said, "Hey man, you owe me $100." And it's like, "For what?" And I go, "Well, Gonzaga beat Carolina." He's like, "Oh shit, you're right." And just fucking wad about that big. There you go. Thanks, man. You know what I mean? But if you asked me that when I was 12 years old, if I would have been in that situation, I would have been like, "Fuck no," you know what I mean?
No,
so it was wild. But yeah, he had a band. It was petty cash. You know what I mean?
That's literally a dream. That's like you said as a kid, like that you dream of that. It's like there's no chance I'll ever.
You know what I should have done, and I still, the way that like sports cards are going now, like I have like 70, 80 Jordan cards somewhere. I know I do, and I should have just like, all right, you could just sign all the upper deck ones. We'll call it even. But yeah.
I have a few lighter ones to get out of here. On when you played at Gonzaga, you played with the T-shirt, the undershirt. We don't really see that as much anymore. I feel like some players still wear it. Yeah. Was there a specific reason why? Was it just based off of comfort? Was
too skinny.
Good luck? Too skinny?
Yeah, it was too skinny. So that's how we look a little bit bigger.
Is that everyone's thinking? Is that why they do it?
I think most guys do it. CDR used to do it at Memphis. I'm trying to think. Delonte West used to do it. I think at St. Joe's. I mean, you guys are the college basketball guys. You got to help me out. Who was the other shirt guys?
Ewing was the pinnacle of that.
Yeah,
forever.
He was.
I mean, he was the first one.
Yeah, but I think for me it was just some guys like to stay warm too. They allow the long sleeves. I think now too.
Yeah.
Like my oldest daughter plays with long sleeves sometimes, and we play in these empty gyms, and it's like, well, she wants to get a sweat and keep it going. So I understand it, but yeah, it looks kind of funny sometimes.
Right. And then one more, a hypothetical here. Would you trade your 2 NBA Finals rings for a national championship at Gonzaga?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know, man. Like I can't. I know this is not a good way to end the show, but I can't really answer that off the dome. There's too many memories. There's too many memories on both sides.
Yeah.
Obviously, I had a way bigger impact at Gonzaga than I did in LA. But being a part of winning situations with that, and guys that especially in the pro stuff, like getting guys to have one singular mind and one goal, and being part of a Phil Jackson team is pretty cool to say as well. So. Sorry, man. I'm going to leave you blank. I'm going to go no comment.
I don't think it can be answered, to be quite honest.
Plead the fifth.
I put you in a tough spot. I'm sorry.
Plead the fifth.
Yeah, I got you.
So that's Adam Morrison, one of the best ever in terms of college basketball players. Again, you can listen to him. He's the host of the Perimeter podcast and Nothing But Net on Dash Radio. Go ahead and listen. Mark Few is the most recent guest, and Big Cat will be joining him soon.
Yeah.
So, Adam, thanks again for the time, and good luck moving forward. We'd love to have you on, maybe in season.
Yeah, like I said, I cover Gonzaga games, so I can give you anything pretty much on the West Coast. But if you ask me, like, middle of the road Big East, I'm gonna be like, fuck off, I'm not watching those games or something.
That's
like
like
that.
me with the,
You know what I mean?
the
So
same
I'll save you
way.
the trouble. The middle of Big East is a traffic jam.
okay, there you go. There you go.
All right. Well, thank you, Adam, and good luck. We'll keep in touch.
Yeah, no problem.